Absolutely, I do. I think we should. Let's go for it. So I just want to tell everybody good morning. I'm Anthony Romero. I'm the Deputy Director with the City of Albuquerque's Department of Senior Affairs, and I'm really pleased to kick off this series of presentations regarding falls prevention. Lots of great people have worked hard to bring you some important information around this topic. Our world looks different these days, and I would prefer that we were physically together. However, thanks to platforms like this, like Zoom, we can still be together to share information and learn from each other. I wanted to thank the New Mexico Falls Prevention Coalition, the New Mexico Department of Health, and Paths to Health for partnering with the City of Albuquerque Department of Senior Affairs. Finally, thank each and every one of you for joining us today. If you need any information from the Department of Senior Affairs, please contact our information and assistance team. They can be reached at 505-764-6400. Again, that's 505-764-6400 on Monday through Friday between 8:30 in the morning and 4:30 p.m. I hope each of you enjoy this morning's session, and I hope that you join us again for another Falls Prevention Friday this month. Take it away, Janet.
Thank you, Anthony. So my name is Janet Popp. I'm a physical therapist in Albuquerque, and I'm delighted to be here. I'm also chair of the New Mexico Adult Falls Prevention Coalition. And the coalition is made up of some people here on the call and other people that are committed to getting the message out that falls are not a normal part of aging. Many can be prevented, and we are trying to share information so that people can have that information, use what's helpful to themselves so that they can be steady on their feet, keep their independence, and live long, healthy lives. I'm going to share screen so that you can see my presentation. Now, I will say, if you have provided an email address, that a link will be sent out after the presentation. It may not be right away because of the holiday. It may be a couple days, but it probably will be today, so that you can access the slides that I'm going to be using today. Okay, and all right, so you should be able to see this. I'd also like to point out that Beth Black, who's one of the executive committee members, is going to be monitoring the chat box. So if you have questions, you could type them in there. If you're not sure about typing or for whatever reason, there's also a little icon that you can raise your hand. You could click on that, but she'll be monitoring that. Periodically, I'll check if there are questions, but that's one of the ways you can communicate. If you have called in by phone, your phone has been automatically muted. So if you try to start speaking, you'll become very frustrated because none of us will be able to hear you. So the way that you could share a question may be after the presentation, so that you could call the number that you called. It was probably to Jennifer Gonzalez, and she could pass that question on to me, and I could follow up if the question is related to my presentation. So we're going to talk about, let's see here. Well, that's strange. Oh, there, it moved. So I do also want to point out that this type of event doesn't happen just by one entity, and we have many partners here. The Department of Senior Affairs, Anthony mentioned Paths to Health. I'll mention more about that, which is an effort by the New Mexico Department of Health. Albuquerque Oasis has also contributed, as well as the Albuquerque Area Southwest Tribal Epidemiology Center. That's a mouthful. Home Care Assistance, and New Mexico Foot and Ankle Institute are some of the partnerships that we have. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Kinsey Cooper. She is the Public Information Officer for the Department of Senior Affairs, and Jennifer Gonzalez, who is the Department of Senior Affairs Executive Assistant. They're really the lifeblood for these events. They make everything happen. People can make suggestions, but they really get it done. So I want to thank them because they've been very helpful through this process. Something is happening where my slides are not advancing. Let me just, well, that's curious. It might be on a delay. Well, anyways, so I wanted to give a shout out to my mom. There's a picture of her. She's on this call. She's from Massachusetts and really tries in many ways. It's really a pleasure to see how she works on her balance. She tries out classes that maybe she hasn't tried before. And I hope that you can take that into consideration as I share some of the information with you. Tai Chi, yoga, walking, different things that can be helpful to you. What we're going to review today is first, how the body controls balance. With the information I'm sharing, I find my patients will say, the doctor keeps telling me to do this, or my daughter keeps telling me to do this. And I find that people are being told what to do. I think it's important to understand why something might be important. So that's the focus of my presentation today. I'm certainly sharing information that you could think about doing, but instead of just saying, do this, I'm trying to give some of the reasoning, some of the whys of why something might be a benefit. Now, all of this may not be a benefit to you. You may pick and choose what you think is relevant to your situation, to your challenges. But I want you to understand the whys. We're going to review some of the changes in walking that may affect balance and discuss some of the ways to not only improve your balance, maybe reduce the shuffle if that's something that's kind of developed for you, but also ways to improve your balance. So Jennifer, can you advance the slides? I'm not sure why I'm not able to advance this. Let me see if down here. Oh, okay, yeah, somehow this is showing up differently. Anyways, I think I have it solved. So the first thing we're going to do is review how the body controls balance. So if you look over on the left side of the screen, you have different kinds of sensory input. So you have your vision, you have the vestibular system, that's the inner ears, and it gives messages to or information to the brain about head movement. There's proprioception, so that's messages coming from the muscles, the joints about position. And then you also have the skin, the nerve endings in the feet. That's somatosensory information. And that can give information about how you shift and change your weight. So all of that sensory information goes up to the brain. The brain is like a computer. And so it processes all that information. It tries to put it all together and make some sense out of your position. And then the brain sends nerve messages to the muscles to adjust your position. And then you've adjusted your position. So now there's more sensory information. And so it's this cycle that's going around and around. It's behind the scenes. We typically don't think about keeping our balance. This all should just be happening without us really concentrating on it. But we're going to refer back to this cycle from time to time. But I'm wondering if anyone would like to type into the chat or raise their hand to give me an example of something, some health condition, something that could disrupt this cycle. And as I am, okay. So Beth, I cannot see the chat box. That's another kind of quirk right now that I'm not really sure about. I can see the participant list, but
So
maybe you could
we have one
chime
response,
in. Oh,
actually 2 responses.
okay, yeah, I do have the chat box up
All right.
now. Okay, good. So let's see here. So Meniere's disease, that's an example. Yes, so that's sort of a fluid regulation problem in the inner ear. It's a vestibular problem. So that certainly can affect. Vertigo is another one. That is from the vestibular, that affects the vestibular portion of this whole balance cycle. Another example, yes, knee injury with nerve damage. So that's going to affect how the body responds to the messages coming from the brain. Dehydration is another example, which is terrific. That one of the things that can happen with dehydration, if you're feeling kind of sluggish and sleepy, you know, you come back from a walk and you're just feeling, you know, just sort of depleted, that could be dehydration. And when you become dehydrated, your blood pressure can get lower, and all of that can affect how sharp the brain is, how the brain processes information, how the body controls and maintains blood pressure. So dehydration is one that really can cause a lot of problems. But those are some good examples. Think about if you have a vision problem, how that might contribute to breaking down this cycle. Now, you know, some of this is doom and gloom, but what I want to point out with this cycle is you want to build on your strengths to compensate for some change in your body that may be happening. You know, as we get older, things happen, right? So we're going to think back to this cycle, how you can build up parts of it to compensate for other parts that may have problems. Okay. So we're going to talk now about gait patterns. This is just you know, some of this is a little doom and gloom, but we need to know where you know, what we're facing. And so, you know, there's some research that shows that for community-based older adults, 70 and older, 35% demonstrate some type of abnormal gait pattern. And there are different categories. So there are neurological-based gait patterns or abnormal gait patterns, and that's about 40% of people, in this case 70 and older. There are non-neurological reasons for having abnormal gait patterns. And I want to just point out that gait is a kind of healthcare term that we use for walking. But so these categories, neurological, maybe someone has had a stroke, and so that's why their walking style has changed. Non-neurological, these are just some examples. There are many more, but we only have an hour or so of time. So, you know, I'm trying to not bombard you with too much information. But about 50% of people that demonstrate some abnormal walking pattern is because of some non-neurological reason. So there could be some problems with muscles or the joints. There could be an injury to one of the tissues, muscle, tendon, ligament, you know, broken bone. Another reason can be because of some problem with your heart or lungs. Maybe your endurance isn't as good as it once was because of that, and that can affect how you walk. Deconditioning from COVID social isolation could be another reason. Everything is not, you know, if you're not moving around as much, your strength, your flexibility, your balance may be somewhat diminished. So I'm looking at this series in September as an opportunity. If you have had that experience, you feel that you're not quite all that you could be, that this has been, social isolation has affected you, infected your mobility, that this could be a time to sort of reverse that trend. Fear of falling is another non-neurological cause of having an abnormal walking pattern. And typically, if fear of falling is different than just having a concern. So for instance, if you know, we don't get a lot of snow, but we do sometimes. If you decide, okay, there's some snow on the ground, I'm going to wait till 10 o'clock when the sun melts the ground, there's no more snow, then I'm going to go for my walk. That's just using good judgment. You're trying to avoid a slippery surface to walk on. Fear of falling would be, I'm not going to my community center because it's going to be really crowded and someone may bump me and knock me over. So that's a type of fear that is leading to limiting your activities. So this fear of falling can change the way you walk. It can slow the speed of your walking. It can cause your feet to separate a little bit so that you're walking with a wider base. Your arms may not swing as much, and you may even sort of stoop over slightly. And that's a pattern connected with fear of falling. Now, 10% of the population that demonstrates some abnormal walking pattern has a combination of neurological and non-neurological. So what I'm going to get into now, I want to just talk a little bit about walking. Now, this is going to be just a snapshot of that. For physical therapists, we spend enormous amounts of time learning about the process of walking. But I just want you to have a sense. So the blue leg is the right leg, and that's what we're focusing on. So as your right leg comes forward, it lands on the heel first. Your body starts to move over that leg, and the leg is getting ready to hold all the body's weight. So that's moving towards the third picture. The knee should be fairly straight so that it can hold the weight. The muscles are stabilizing the leg. The body is moving over that leg. As the other foot comes forward, now the person is going to roll up onto their toe and push towards making that the left foot come forward. And then you see still on the right side, the toe comes up, and now that leg is swinging forward. So there's many components to the cycle of walking. So I'm just going to have you take a look for a moment at this, and we'll talk about different parts of it, but I wanted you to just have a sense of, from a physical therapy perspective, how we break down walking and we look at the different components of it. And I'm going to use this picture and refer to it again. So with sort of, I'm going to refer to it as easy walking, more efficient walking. There are some components to easier walking. And this is just a snapshot. There's many more, but you know, if you can be more upright, it's going to allow your legs to swing forward and take steps. If you're leaning forward, and I'll get onto the next pictures, but this is just for now, an upright trunk, the ability to have some hip extensions. So I'm using the cursor and I'm pointing to this leg right here. And this is hip extension. So when the leg goes back, the hip is going into extension. That's also important because when the hip goes back, it sends a little message to the brain to initiate this muscle gets a little stretch. It sends a message and it causes the brain to send nerve message to make the leg start to swing forward. So there's also some neurological information or information from the brain that's coming down, going up and down to help with the automatic process of walking. Because we don't think about moving each foot forward one at a time. Now you certainly might after you've had surgery, but you know, generally it should be an automatic process. Heel strike, so that's when the heel is right here. The first thing that should hit the ground is the heel. You don't want to scoot your foot forward, shuffle it forward, because that's more work. And then we have terminal stance, where as this heel is lifting, the calf muscle is going to contract and push the body forward. And then there's also weight shifting. So when you are putting all your weight on one leg, it allows the other leg to move forward. So you have to also shift your weight from one side to the other. So that's easy walking. Now, difficult walking, the distance between your feet can become a little wider, and that's going to cause a little bit of a sway from side to side. There's also more time when both feet are on the ground at the same time. This duration of time extends, which makes walking less efficient. There's less use of momentum to move the leg forward. Your step length can shorten for a number of reasons. Here, I'm just going to give an example. If your knee stays in a bent position, think about this. This leg is going out pretty straight. If it doesn't, the foot's going to land sooner, which shortens the length of your step, which means the body has to take more steps. It's more work. If the hip is tight, the front of the hip, that may cause the person to lean forward. If you're leaning forward, it's difficult to get that, again here, if you're leaning forward, it's difficult to get that foot out as far. The other thing that can happen if someone is leaning forward, this is their nose is out in front of their feet. It means they're going to put more weight across the front of their foot. And that also makes it more difficult to take a step. You're always kind of catching your foot, getting your foot down because your weight is shifted too far forward. Some of this is complicated, but again, it's some of the whys. And so I wanted you to have a sense of that. And we're going to get into some of the solutions soon. So some of the causes, these are some common causes for a shuffling style of walking. So weak hip and leg muscles, arthritic pain in the legs can change how your walking flow is. Loss of flexibility in the feet that leads to a decrease in dorsiflexion. So dorsiflexion is, we're going to do a little test for that in a moment. But dorsiflexion is if you have your foot flat on the floor, can you lift your toes up? It's that movement that the ankle makes to lift your toes up. We're going to test it in a different way. If you're having more difficulty with your balance, that can lead to a shuffling style of walking. Vision difficulties, fear of falling, I've talked about already. Medication side effects are another cause for a shuffling style of walking. Worn or poorly fitting shoes or slippers. You know, if you have to kind of claw your feet down, claw your toes to keep those slippers from sliding off, that's going to lead to a shorter step and possibly a shuffling style of walking. And then slippery floors can also affect the way you walk. So we're going to do a little test now, not test, I'll call it a challenge. You know, you do what you can, but this is not an official way of testing for dorsiflexion, for this flexibility in your ankle. But I thought it might be just something to try. With physical therapists, we would typically use a device called a goniometer, and it measures angles of joints. But you know, that's not what we're doing today. So what I'd like you to try doing is just sitting upright in your chair with your feet flat on the floor. Now, and I kept my shoes on. Typically when we measure ankle flexibility, we would take the patient's shoes off to allow for freer movement. But I wanted to just show it with sneakers because I don't want you to have to fuss with taking your shoes off. So your feet right under your knee, okay? You should be able to look forward and see your toes beyond your knees. What I'd like you to do, and you will try this gently, with no force, with no sudden movement. This is something you ease into. You will try sliding one of your feet backwards in this position. Maybe not as far as this, but you slide the foot back as far as you can and still keep your heel flat on the floor. So I want you to try that. You can try it on one foot, or you can try it, alternate and try it on the other foot. We're just going to take 10 seconds or so. But when you slide your foot back, making sure the heel stays flat on the floor, take a look and see if that foot is now behind your knee. See here, the foot is in front of the knee. Here, the foot is behind the knee. So I want you to just make note of that. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to launch a poll. I just had the poll here. Whoops. Let's try this. Oh, okay. So I'm going to launch a poll, which is just a series of questions, one question. And what I'd like you to do is you move your cursor, your pointer, to the answer. And this is an anonymous poll. We're not collecting names, but this is just to get a sense. Can you slide your foot back behind your knee and still keep your heel on the floor? You want to make sure, I neglected to say this, you want to make sure that your toes are pointing forward, not out to the side, but pointing forward. So we'll just give this a few moments. You're not required to answer the poll. It's just to get a sense of, you know, where people are at. Okay, so that is, we'll stop there. So you can see the, I think you can see that 76% said yes, they can slide their foot back behind their knee. 24% said no. And here I will share the results. You can see that. It should be up on your screen. Okay, so why does this matter that you have that flexibility in your ankle? These are just a few examples. There are more reasons, but if you can't get at least 10 degrees of that movement, you may be catching your toe as you swing your leg forward. This toe may slide or kind of scuff across the floor. The other thing that can happen, look here at this, where I'm pointing, this back leg here. If you don't have at least 10 degrees of dorsiflexion, the leg isn't going to move in this direction, so this foot is going to land sooner. Or the person may compensate by rotating their pelvis more, which can also contribute to lower back problems. Finally, when you are getting up from a chair, I'm going to go back one slide. The trick to getting up from a chair is to be able to come to the edge of the chair and get your legs, your feet, under your legs. If you try to get up from this position, your feet are pushing back against your body, and then you have to use your arms to lift yourself up and over to get to standing. If you can get this flexibility, if you have this flexibility here and both legs go back, you lean your body forward, so your nose is going to be out here, and your legs are underneath your body to then push straight up. It's a more efficient way of getting up from a chair. But having some ankle flexibility can help with that. So that's just one, just a few examples of why that might matter. So we're going to do another balance challenge. Now this is something that, if you need a walker, if you're unsteady, this might not be the right test for you to do right now. So you have to use your good judgment in trying to do this. I have here holding the kitchen counter. You may be in a location where the kitchen counter isn't nearby. If you have something very sturdy, not a light chair that could just turn, but something that you could hold on to. The challenge for this is to try to balance on one leg. So if you want to do this, we're going to take just a minute or so. So approach either the kitchen counter, and I'm going to talk just a bit louder in case you're moving away from your computer, but maybe you'll still be able to hear. You're going to hold on to that surface, the kitchen counter or a sturdy chair or couch, something. Hold with two hands. Then you're going to stand on one leg. Now, you can have the leg back like that. You can bend it so that the hips forward, just something. Find your balance standing on one leg. Once you feel steady, then try to lift your hands off of the counter and not put the hands away. Try to just hover them over the counter or the chair, just a couple of inches. And then try to hold that for 10 seconds. So I'm going to have you just, because everyone's doing it at their own pace, I'm not going to count out 10. I want you to try to count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, something like that, or if you have a clock. But try to hold that for 10 seconds. So I'm just going to pause, let you try that. And again, just balancing on one leg. Then once you have your balance, try to move your hands so that they're just hovering over the surface. They're readily available to just drop down if you lost your balance. Try not to hook the one foot behind your leg. If you lift your leg up, try not to hook it behind the leg that you're standing on. Just try to bend it off the floor. Just has to be a couple of inches, and balance. Okay. I don't see anyone, so I'm not sure, I see my slide presentation, so I'm not sure if you're finished, but, if you've given it a try, that's great. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to launch another poll. So what I'd like you to do is click on how long you were able to stand. Now remember, it's without the use of your hands. So if you had to put your foot down, then that stops the test. Okay, looks like people have answered. So I'm going to end the poll, and then I'm going to share the results. And you can see that about 10% weren't able to do that. 65% were able to complete the 10 seconds. So that means roughly 30% had trouble meeting that 10-second mark. So, you want to know where you stand in a way, no pun intended. But then you know where you want to work towards. Why is it important to be able to stand on one leg? So if we look back to this picture of the walking cycle, there are moments during the cycle where you are balancing on only one leg, and it adds up to around 30-35% of the total cycle, from one leg to the leg taking a step and then taking a step again. So if you can improve that skill, that can help to improve the steadiness of your walking. And practice makes perfect, and when I say perfect, it means really improves, because really perfection, I often say we don't want perfection to get in the way of accomplishing something. But you can work on that skill at the kitchen counter. There are other ways to work on improving the ability to stand on one leg, but it can help to steady your walking. You are strengthening the connection between the brain and the feet, and that contributes to that balance cycle that we talked about earlier. So by practicing, the other way that I'd like to describe it, if you think about maybe your children when they were young, or grandchildren, and when they were toddlers and they were learning to walk, and they looked like Frankenstein, and they'd kind of take a step and then they'd bump back down, and they'd get up and, very wobbly, their feet out to the side, very unsteady. And they were practicing over and over and over till before you knew it, they were running away from you. They are training their brains, building the muscles, helping the brain to take all that sensory information, make sense of it, and send coordinated messages to the muscles. And so at the other end of the life cycle, as we get older, you can try to tune up those systems, with practice. And I'm going to talk about some of the programs that are helpful to that. All righty. And one last test. How are we doing for time? Good. Yeah, we're doing just fine. This is to check how strong your calf muscle is. So the calf muscles are really important because they contribute to the efficiency of your walking. So this is the last test. Again, go to where you were to do the standing on one leg. And this time you're going to keep two hands on that surface. You don't take those hands away. You're not going to push down on the surface, but you're going to keep your hands on either the counter or the chair or the couch, just for balance. This is a strength test, not a balance test. So you will stand on one leg and then raise the heel as high as you can, up and down. So the toes stay down, the heel lifts, and you're going to do this on one leg. So you're testing the strength of the muscles in the calf for one leg. So raising up and down. I'd like you to try to do that 5 repetitions for one leg. If you can't do it, that's fine. You want to make sure that you're not letting your knee bend. The knee has to stay straight, because then that means you're lifting all of your body weight by using the calf muscles. And you also do not want to push on your hands, push to lift your body up. The hands are just for balance. So I'm going to give that 30 seconds or so for you to try to do 5 repetitions. If it causes pain, stop. Just try to do that. And again, you are standing on one leg to do it. Okay, now I'm going to launch the final poll. And this is, how did you do? So how many heel lifts were you able to do? And again, you standing on one leg, the knee stays straight. So if you can check off the number that you were able to do. Oh, sorry, I have to launch the poll. There you go. Okay, looks like everyone I think is entered that. Okay, oh, there's still another. Okay, just wait another 5 seconds or so. Okay, so we have oh, another one. All right, I'm going to stop the poll and share the results. So there are quite a bit of you that could do 5 repetitions. That's terrific. Other people were able to do some, so that's good. But you can see that there, is possibly some room for improvement. Now, let me just close that out. So why is it important to have calf muscles that are strong? So one, as soon as you stand up, the first muscles to really kick in are the muscles below your knees. So the shin muscles and the calf muscles, and they kind of contract, and they're the first ones to keep you steady. So if you stand up and you feel like you wobble a little bit, it's not, one possible reason might be because of weak muscles in the lower legs. There's many reasons, but one possible. The calf muscles, as I mentioned, contribute to taking a bigger step when you're walking. It propels you forward. So that helps with the efficiency of walking. So if your walking is more efficient, it's going to take less effort. You can get from point A to point B more easily. And so, that's certainly something that we try to, try to strive for. No pun intended. I can't believe I'm with the puns, but not meaning it. The other benefit to having stronger muscles in the lower legs, it can help with lower leg swelling. So the muscles in, particularly the calf muscles, can contract and make a stronger contraction, and they act as a pump to push fluids back up the leg. So that's another benefit. There are many benefits, but these are just a few. All right, that's a picture of my grandmother. And I guess as a hint, so if you're wondering where I'm from, although I did mention my mother lives in Massachusetts, so that probably is a pretty good hint. But I am from the Boston area, and my grandmother was a nurse. She lived till she was 97, and she was an avid Red Sox fan. So we already did the polls. Think about if there is some room for improvement in any of those tests. There are many other parts of function that can be tested. We're just narrowing it down to 3 aspects. So some things that you should think about. If you're having balance problems, you should discuss this with your healthcare provider to rule out a medical cause. It might be something that needs to be fixed in some way or needs to be treated. Maybe the reason you're unsteady is because of a medication side effect. So it's important that you talk to your doctor and make sure that it isn't something that's easily correctable. You should check your shoes and slippers. You want to have good fit. I talked about if your toes kind of claw your shoes when you're walking so that they don't slide forward, that's going to affect your walking. I would like to, this is part of a series, this presentation is part of a series in September, so Fall Prevention Fridays. And next Friday, There will be a podiatrist who's going to give a presentation taking care of your feet to prevent falls. You can learn more about various aspects related to shoes and slippers. It's important that you have an annual vision check so that your vision is as good as it can be. If you find that you trip, you stumble when you're out in the community, that maybe you have trouble seeing the curbs as you take a step, do you wear transition lenses or multifocal lenses? Maybe, according to the research, it might be a benefit to you if you have single prescription lenses when you're out and about in the community. So keeping your reading glasses nearby, but wearing just single prescription distant glasses. That's not for everyone, but it's something that you may think about in your own day-to-day activities. Maybe it's a benefit for some of you. Then there's the fear of falling. So I mentioned that there is a program that helps to address the fear of falling, to help to improve people's ability. It helps them to come up with plans to minimize that fear, to develop more confidence in their balance. And the program right now is available in Albuquerque, but it's on hold because of COVID. Now there are other programs, including a Tai Chi program, that there should be more virtual availability for this program, and it's been shown to reduce the fear of falling. Now, if you want to learn more about some of the programs, September 18th, there'll be a presentation called Keep Moving, Stay Independent, and they're going to go through and demonstrate some of the available programs that you may attend now. Some of them are only available virtually for the meantime, but then would be available in senior centers and other locations, such as Oasis in Albuquerque. So home safety is another issue that you should think about if you have problems with your balance. Try to remove those trip hazards so you can move more easily around the house. Think about home modifications, that you want your house to support you. You don't want to have to adapt to challenges in your home. So if it's possible to make modifications, then think about that. The Department of Senior Affairs does have a home retrofit program where they'll make some minor modifications, including installing grab bars for free. And so maybe that would be a first step for you. We will have a home safety talk September 25th. And that will be, I think Athena, I think I saw her on this call. She's, I think she's still logged in, and she'll be the one giving the presentation. She's from the Albuquerque Community Paramedicine program called HEART, which I can't say the abbreviation for, but so you have to attend the 25th and you'll find out what that stands for. But more information about home safety. Now, so what to do about balance problems? This is curious. Okay, somehow it became live. So, certainly physical activity is really important. So strengthening your hip and leg muscles, trying to address arthritic pain, improving the flexibility in your ankles, improving balance. All of this can be, I'm not saying you'll have the flexibility and the balance of an 18-year-old, but you can be a better version of yourself with specific kinds of physical activity. And again, I mentioned September 18th, they'll be reviewing some of that. In addition, the Department of Health has launched a website that has a listing of different evidence-based programs, including fall prevention programs that are available in Albuquerque, but also around the state. And so there's the contact information and the website where you can go to see a map with a list of programs. Now, just very briefly, maybe you don't want to take an exercise class. Maybe you just are more comfortable doing exercise on your own. So if you Google Workout to Go mini exercise guide, it brings you up to a guide that has some different exercises for strength, flexibility, and balance. Some of the muscles that have been linked with fall risk are, and I've mentioned the dorsiflexors, so not only the ability to move the ankle into that position, but also the shin muscles to be able to lift the toes when you are taking steps. Then we've talked about the plantar flexors, the calf muscles. Those are very important. Then we have muscles on the side of our hips. If those muscles are weak, they can cause you to sway from side to side when you're walking, and that's much less efficient to be able to, you want all your movement really going forward and not this type of movement from side to side. And then of course the quadriceps muscles, which are the muscles across the front of your thighs. And you can work on that by doing a sit to stand exercise. Now you probably would start out maybe putting your hands on the armrest of a chair. You don't have to start out this way. You want to have a very controlled standing up and sitting down. But when you do a number of repetitions of this exercise, it really helps to start to build the strength in those front thigh muscles. Now, and then this is an example of flexibility to get more of this dorsiflexion. Okay, and just a couple of events that I want to highlight. In addition to this Fall Prevention Friday series, the National Council on Aging is going to have a Facebook event. And these are the dates. September 23rd, they'll have an English panel discussion. And this is about, this refers to an online self-assessment for fall risk. So you can go to these links, either the English link or the Spanish link, complete the answers to 12 questions, and then you will get a report with the answers, with your responses and why these different questions matter towards reducing falls risk. From that, there will be these panel discussions on the 23rd and the 24th that you can log into. You don't need to register. They will just be broadcasting it from this address, facebook.com. You do not need to have an account. You can just go there and it will be available to you. And then finally, this is just a review of the upcoming series that the Department of Senior Affairs and the Falls Coalition has put together. If you have more questions about the series, you can contact Jennifer Gonzalez. You may have already contacted her by email to get the Zoom link. There's her phone number also. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I see that there are some questions. And let's see. Beth, are there certain ones I should key into?
I'm not
So
aware.
just to review, this.
I'm not aware of any
this has been
questions.
no. Oh, okay. This has been recorded, and you'll be able to go to the Department of Senior Affairs site to listen to it again if you would like, or if you want to share it with, with a friend. There is, let's see. Sometimes, so someone just okay. So I have a question here about my opinion about using walking sticks. I normally don't need anything for regular walking. So, there are benefits to using, the trekking poles, the walking sticks. What's been found in the research is it's actually more work when you use walking poles if you go out for a walk. But even though it's more work, so it's more exercise for your heart because you're using your arms, people can do more activity with the poles. So even though you're exercising with more exertion, you're able to engage in more exertion. So you don't feel as tired or you don't feel that exertion as much. I guess that's the best way of putting it. If you are unsteady and walking sticks are going to get you out walking, certainly that's a benefit. it's not, the walking sticks are not, I think of walking sticks as different than, say, a mechanical lift chair. A mechanical lift chair, some people need that help to get up from a chair. But if you don't really need it, you want to be able to use your muscles. So with the walking sticks, you know, you want to be out walking, you want to be challenging your balance, but if you're challenging your balance too much and you walk less, then you want to use the walking sticks. If you feel you're unsafe, or occasionally unsteady, or maybe it's after you've been walking for a while and you start to get tired, and that's when you really need the walking sticks, that's allowing you to engage in a longer duration of exercise. So there's no one right answer. I think the short one is there's no one right answer, but they can be a benefit to many people. Let's see. So yes, so I have a comment here. When the person was doing the calf strength test, it was harder on the left side, the right side was stronger. We're often asymmetrical. You know, so one side can be stronger than the other, but maybe that's something to key into. If one side was more difficult to perform that test, maybe you want to bring more balance into that muscle strength.
I can just interject here, Janet. As you were presenting,
I don't see any other questions. We're just about at 10:30, but if you have a question, if you want to just unmute, or if you have a question that you wanted to ask afterwards, I can stay on this call for a little while. But I appreciate, again, I want to thank the Department of Senior Affairs for organizing this, and certainly to Jennifer and to Kinsey and Anthony, but more Jennifer and Kinsey. And thank you for taking the time to come out and learn about these aspects to fall prevention. If you feel that you're having trouble with your balance, you could also go to see a physical therapist. Physical therapists are not only for people that break bones or have some serious health change in their life. They can be for helping you to be the best version of yourself. So you might want to consider that. Check out these other Friday series to learn more about other options for how you can reduce your fall risk, improve your balance, and stay independent in your communities. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate all of you coming out.
Yeah.